Hello, I'm Nancy Cordes at the United Center in Chicago, and welcome to a special Democratic National Convention edition of America Decides. Here in Chicago, delegates are gearing up for night 2 of the Democratic National Convention, while Vice President Kamala Harris is breaking away from the convention for the day for her first campaign rally in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with her running mate, Governor Tim Walz. Here at the United Center, we've been getting something of a concert this afternoon. Sound checks by Common, by Patti LaBelle. And so it's been fun to watch, and we'll see them for real this evening. Here at the United Center, former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama are set to speak tonight as well. Let's bring in Robert Costa and Ed O'Keefe to discuss what we can expect. Robert is here with me. Ed, of course, down on his in his traditional position on the floor. Ed, set the stage for us. Tell us what we're expecting to hear and who we're expecting to hear from tonight.
Nancy, as they work their way through the anthem here, we're going to hear, let's go backwards. And we'll start with the former president, Barack Obama, his wife, the former First Lady, Michelle Obama, so two very famous Windy City residents. We'll also hear from Doug Emhoff, the second gentleman of the United States, angling, I suppose, to be first gentleman of the United States. Watch his speech tonight, because not only a chance for him to talk about his wife, with whom he celebrates his 10th wedding anniversary on the night that she accepts the nomination, Thursday, but also there's been some suggestion that he might focus a bit on the work he's done, especially in the last 9 months or so, concerning anti-Semitism, the scourge of it in this country and around the world. Remember, he's visited concentration camps in Europe. He's met with the families of Israeli hostages, American hostages, and has spoken out frequently about anti-Jewish sentiments and attacks in this country and around the world. Be curious if he brings that up at all tonight, and if we hear, and we will see his son Cole introduce him as well. After that, it's Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Senator Bernie Sanders, who has an opportunity as the top progressive in this party, really the progressive spirit animal, even though he is an independent, to validate Harris to those that maybe believe she's not liberal enough, and to speak more broadly about the concerns that progressives like him have. And then we'll hear from a handful of others. And we're expecting, for example, tonight, even more Republicans, either who worked for or once supported former President Donald Trump, to be here to speak on why they now believe Harris is the country's only option.
Right, that'll be interesting tonight to hear from several Republicans, even some who worked for former President Trump. Bob, last night we heard briefly from the nominee herself, Kamala Harris. She made a surprise appearance. Let's take a listen to a little bit of what she had to say and then talk about it.
This November, we will come together and declare with one voice, as one people, we are moving forward.
Moving forward, not back. That's a big theme of the next 4 days. Bob, how is the campaign feeling about her performance and how things are going so far in general?
There's an optimism behind the scenes among Harris advisors that they got through what they saw was perhaps the toughest night. It was a balancing act for the Harris campaign to open her convention while paying respect to President Joe Biden, a very personal moment for the president and his family. Now, after getting through Monday and the emotion of what it's like to see the sitting president, the former nominee, a presumptive nominee, wiping a tear from his face, listening to his family, now it turns to the politics. As Ed said, some Republicans are going to be speaking. Can she broaden the coalition? Can she reach out to centrist voters, Republican voters, who might not love former President Donald Trump? Can she make an overture to them? The Harris advisors tell me that she's known, she's vice president of the United States, but at the same time, she's not easily defined in the eyes of many voters. She doesn't have a hardened persona when you look at polling. People don't immediately come to a conclusion when they hear her name about what she represents politically. And for Democrats, that presents an opportunity for her with this convention, especially with her speech on Thursday night, to introduce herself to the country on her own terms.
And because she isn't as well known, Ed, the president himself had an opportunity last night to help the public know her a little bit better. Let's listen a little bit to what he had to say about his vice president.
Her story represents the best American story. And like many of our best presidents, she was also vice president. That's a joke.
So, Ed, lots of support and praise from the president for Kamala Harris. He spoke for nearly an hour, but she's been by his side for 4 years now, and we really didn't get many specifics, any kinds of personal stories that the president has that would either help us know her better or would help the public understand her strengths and what she's about.
No, I thought that was a real lost opportunity, Nancy, in an otherwise pretty laudatory and sort of good summary of what the president has done and believes his legacy to be. Right after that quip, it could have been very simple. You know, give us one or two examples, vivid ones in his mind, of how she's been in the room for key decisions or when she has weighed in and tweaked his thinking on something or his final decision, and we didn't get it. And these are questions, by the way, that he's been asked repeatedly, especially in the last year and a half. What is it about her specifically that you believe makes her qualified? And he just goes, well, she's, you know, smart. She's been there. She understands the issues. Of course, she's ready to go. But he's never provided specifics. That's maybe just not in his nature. Doesn't necessarily feel the need to do it because in his view, because I picked her and because she's worked with me, she's qualified. But you're right. It would have been a good opportunity for him perhaps to lay out something, either in the domestic or even more perhaps critically the foreign space, to say, this is where she has been helpful. And we know, for example, Nancy, in the last few weeks, especially since the hostages were released in Russia, that the White House has gone out of its way to call out a few times when she was the key interlocutor between the U.S. and European leaders at the president's request. A meeting with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, for example. A few other conversations she had on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference earlier this year. But why not use this platform when tens of millions of Americans are watching either live or watching it the next day to perhaps call out some of that and assuage the concerns of those that might think she's still not ready?
Yeah. Bob, Republicans are watching this convention very closely, just as Democrats were watching the Republican convention a month ago. What do they make of what they're seeing so far?
It's almost like they're watching a battle unfold or their enemy get ready for the battle in the fall, and they're just in a low-key mode right now. Former President Trump is telling his advisors privately that once this Democratic convention is over, he expects her to get a bump in the polls. He expects Democrats to emerge united, though you never know. That's his expectation, I'm told. But he's going to start a barrage of attacks, and we saw a lot of it already in his conversation with our colleague Caitlin Huey-Burns. She had a great interview with Trump that was revealing about his state of mind. It was a prism about where that Trump campaign's at. He is going to attack her in personal ways, scathing ways.
Yeah.
And that is what she's going to have to deal with. This reminds me a lot of 2016. Secretary Clinton in her campaign, they didn't want to kind of wade into that rhetorical swamp and get into a messy political fight with Trump. But Trump will force you to do it.
Right. It's a challenge no matter which way you go. Bob Costa, thanks so much. Ed O'Keefe on the floor, thank you so much. We'll be coming back to you in the next hour or two. Appreciate it.